So I thought it'd be nice to do a slightly more full-length interview for the channel. Just to set the scene. This is Mark. Meet Katie.
Hello.
And he came into town yesterday, into Berlin, and played at Tresor last night. Banging set.
Thank you.
I've been buying his records, was buying his records back in...
when is that?
Something like 99, 98, 99.
Yeah.
Maybe even before.
It's been going for a while.
It's been going for a while. So this was, what label was that on?
King Size.
King Size. Was that yours?
This is 2002, this one.
King Size wasn't your label, you know?
No, King Size was, it originally started as a record shop in the suburbs of London, and they decided to get a label off the ground, and it was just my local record shop, so I used to go in there and buy records. And I was recording for Wall of Sound at that point.
Another fantastic label. Anyone that doesn't know, that's Wall of Sound and Skint are probably my
favourites.
Well, yeah, back then
classic labels, aren't they?
I've definitely got the most records from Wall of Sound and Skint.
Yeah,
probably Finger Licking and
Fresca Nova.
Yeah,
Big Beat days.
Yeah, the good old days. So what happened after that?
So I was going to start, because I come from a live background, so I was going to start another band when the project that I was in with Jason O'Brien and Derek DeLarge, called Ceasefire, disbanded. I was going to start another band, so I was looking for a name for a band, and I was kind of wandering around, trying to absorb ideas for this band, and I saw down the side of a 16mm film the words "Meet Katie," and because my flatmate at the time used to do, he was a VJ. This is before digital, but I used to splice up the Super 8 and the 16mm and make little sequences, all done by hand. And that's why I was shopping with him for stock for his visual stuff. And I just saw the name Meet Katie written down the side of like a film in the erotica section.
I thought it might have been in that kind of area.
And I like the names like Jane's Addiction and, like even Porno for Pyros and that sort of a little bit kind of off-kilter names. And I thought it'd be a good name for a band. And then I just never got around to recruiting any other members. So I ended up with a very bizarre DJ name and production name. And
it stuck.
It stuck, and it was a bit. It sort of worked by default because it wasn't planned. And if I'd planned, I certainly wouldn't have called myself Meet Katie as a DJ. It gives off the wrong thing.
Yeah. What was your style back then? What was your kind of? Well, how would you define your style when you started out?
Well, just kind of sort of alternative dance music, really. My first album was very much based around making loads of ideas that I like and sticking them all in one place, and that's an album. A very simple concept was just make tracks that I like. Don't worry about. I never really have, but even then it was like, because it was the days of Big Beat. This is kind of pre New School Breaks. There was a real connection between bands and dance music. Like you mentioned Fatboy Slim and people like that, but the Chemical Brothers and Death in Vegas and Monkey Mafia, they're all very alternative. This is days of like Heavenly Social.
That was my favourite club. I was a weekly resident at Sam Mills. Back then, we'd see like the Chemical Brothers and all these people play every weekend before they were massive international.
And you'd hear them playing like rock tracks beside techno tracks, and it was very exciting sort of time, and it was a bit of a revolution. For me, it had the same sort of impact as Acid House, where when I first heard Acid House, I was just like, oh my god, where there wasn't any genres, there was Balearic beside hard German techno, and people like Fabio and Groove Rider I used to go and see, long time ago. And
I was a big drum and bass head.
well, this is pre-drum and bass,
right.
So at that time they were playing stuff like 808 State and Devon House music,
Okay.
But not straight up house. This is when there was no genres. So hardcore records would sit alongside an Ibiza Balearic track, because they were the tracks that, they just kind of worked. I remember my first sort of warehouse party that I went to in Battersea, and I remember all night they were playing like this kind of mixture of just everything, very, very kind of trippy and like psychedelic dance music. And then by the morning there wasn't enough music to play, so they were playing dub. So, and it was a warehouse party, and it obviously had like a big window, and they hadn't blacked them out, so it all got really light. And I was sort of looking around, everyone's off their head on acid, LSD back then, because these weren't really around. They hadn't really sort of, it was this kind of just sort of when ecstasy was £20, people couldn't afford it. It was a yuppies drug, so acid had a kind of major sort of impact on the sort of music. But there wasn't enough music to actually play, so they were playing like dub and like chill out music in the morning.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, how much sort of intense music can you take on acid?
I mean, how much do you want to take?
Yeah. So when you play a DJ set, how much of the music you play is sort of determined by the crowd, or how much is it more that you go there with a perceived idea of what you're going to play and just deliver that, or will the crowd response sometimes take it in a different direction? Or what I'm trying to say is, how much do you feed off the crowd, would you say, when you
immensely. You were there last night, so...
Well, they were loving it, so... really hard. Tresor style.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
Like we were talking before we went to the club, and I said, I have a bunch of music that I want to play, and I hope I can play it. And really what that is it's not that I turn up going, I'm going to do this, I hope, that you got to follow me. But at the end of the day, I do want to direct the people that have come and seen me play, because they're obviously buying into what you do. They don't want you to turn up and play a load of music that is very commercial just because everyone knows it. That is just, you might as well just... There's no point in... How can I try it? It's like there's certain DJs out there, and you can say, well, what do you play? And they say, well, whatever's popular, well, what people dance to. But I think the point is certainly when you're a producer DJ, it's that you do have these like ideas creatively of what you want to achieve, and the goal is to actually do all those ideas. So the reason why I was happy with last night and with Friday night in Prague as well is that I was playing in a warehouse party, and I managed to deliver all the ideas that I wanted to think, and the crowd went with it. But I'm not going to play a load of music that people aren't enjoy. I try not to. Don't get me wrong.
Can't please everyone.
And your CD wallets, or whatever you play off, is full of music that you like. That there is obviously a chance that you could turn up and nobody likes it. But I guess as you become more successful, or established in what you do, that you kind of, people are turning up at the shows, and there's a little bit more of an expectation of what they're going to get. So I think that it's a little bit easier when people know who you are.
Yeah. So how would you say your style has changed recently? Because obviously last night it was incredibly hard to sort of match the Tresor, and I know they've asked you to play specifically, harder.
They just don't want it fluffy down there.
No, they want it. I don't think
the people that run Tresor, I don't think they really need you to. It's funny because it's like they want it tough. They want it in line with the club itself, which is very, very industrialized. It's an industrial club. If you walk down there and there's no music playing, it has a vibe, and it's very industrial. Bars, metal bars, concrete walls, massive sound system.
Speaking about the sound system, it's the quality there is obviously.
They've been tweaking it as well recently, and
the monitors
were just
incredible.
Yeah. Fantastic. So it helps you do a better job if you can hear what you're trying to do. With regards to my style and how it changes and develops, I only carry music I like. It's just that I happen to like everything from deep house to really like alternative rock stuff. But obviously, I'm not going to play that in a club. But my taste is very broad.
There are elements of it probably.
There are some elements, like some alternative elements, which I think I'm always going to have that because, I never set out to be a DJ. I never wanted to be a DJ. I just kind of fell into it and just ended up being a DJ. I'm not complaining. I'm happy with, the direction of my career, just being very lucky. But it wasn't on my to-do list when I was growing up. I'm going to be a DJ. No, not at all. But when I started to DJ, I started to play in clubs, and I started to enjoy other people's sets and start looking at other DJs. I just wanted to be a lot better. I did. It's that thing is, if you're going to do something, try and do it well. So when I did fall into it, I mean, I was practicing when I first started. I must like 6 to 8 hours a day. I was practicing DJing. I mean, I didn't want to turn up at a club and not be as good as at mixing, like the actual delivery of what I wanted to play. I didn't want anyone to fault that. That I can control. I can't control if someone likes my taste or not, but I can control the technical side of it.
Yeah,
that I can.
And you do, and your mixing is exceptional.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's and it's not easy to play the hard styles and the more 4/4 styles. I guess when I first started DJing, it was breaks, and I was mixing it up, break beats, and that is easier at the end of the day. And
when a 4-bar drop is very easy, you bang bang and off track, But then that music kind of lends to that style, so it's hard to do long mixes, long drawn out, key escalating mixes with breaks because there's a lot going on. Then
you have to consider the scales and the key of the pieces,
the movement, the atmosphere and the mood change and the different, which has to be taken into consideration when you're DJing. Like Tresor is a good example. You noticed that there was a real atmosphere, and trying to control that atmosphere and keep that atmosphere going where you want it to go, and you can see the vibe. You can get very dark, you can get very deep, but it's nice to freshen it up at a point where it kind of they come out of it. It's like to almost give the crowd a breather. I couldn't play 2-3 hours of just slamming music without some kind of reprieve here and there for when people can just go whew, and they can take stock of what they're actually listening to. So the tougher stuff actually has more power and kind of delivery when it comes in, rather than if it's all just bang 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 bang, it just becomes linear like anything else.
So production, you've been producing for as long as you've been DJing. Which came first?
Producing. Yeah, I was a bass player first.
Yeah,
and then a friend of mine bought a sampler, and I had a big record collection of funk, rare groove, hip hop.
So it started with an EMU sampler.
No, this is Akai.
Oh, sorry, Akai 3000.
1000 XL or SL.
I think I had the S3000. Maybe slightly up.
Yeah, that was the one after. Yeah.
And with Cubase.
At the time, Atari.
Yeah. And now?
Now I use Logic. Which I love.
X or not X yet? 7.
No, I'm still
7. It is 7.
It's
9.
9. It's
sorry.
9.
Sorry,
I think 7.
Ableton's. I get confused with the numbers of So
Logic 9.
Yeah.
I kind of, I'm not, I've said this too many times, I'm not a tech head. I kind of know what I know, and I learn new tricks to achieve new things. I'm not someone I haven't got the patience to sit there and learn something inside out. I say patience, the other thing is I'm dyslexic, which has always been a bit of an issue trying to, especially when you're days of manuals. I don't read too well, so it was a nightmare. And this is actually due to, I found out recently because my daughter's got dyslexia as well. It's short-term memory. That's what the problem is that it's holding your memory for short term. So when you read something, I have to keep reading it again and again and again. I found out later on in life this is probably why I stuck to being something creative that isn't. You don't need those skills as much as in a job that you need to read and write every day, whereas I did struggle with manuals when I first started, and I didn't actually know why. This was the mad thing. I didn't get diagnosed with dyslexia until I was 40 years old. Incredible, really.
Yeah no, that's I mean, I know quite a few people who've had that same thing. They haven't, in fact, the head of our course, or ex-head of my university course, Dave Fisher, was dyslexic. Well, he's dyslexic, but he didn't know at the time, and he was ex-Cambridge.
Really?
Yeah, and he had issues all through studying because of dyslexia, but it wasn't a well-known thing then.
No.
So it caused all sorts of problems.
So
anyway,
so learning how to use any sort of like kit and stuff like that, especially when there was all hardware, and I'm sure you remember this, that you'd have a stack of manuals and everything had to be plugged in, and the way that you'd write music is I'd have like a tape. I had a Soundcraft Ghost 32.8 mixing desk, and it wasn't recallable or anything. So you had all these tapes stuck to the wall with all the channels and how they'd be set. So you basically, when I first started writing music, you'd write it and you'd finish that piece of music, and you didn't go to another piece until that was done. So I kind of like that. I like that sort of. It's more productive. Whereas now you almost have too much time. You have too much flexibility. It's difficult to write music because you've got as long as you need, however long that may be. Whereas when I first started, I'd go into a recording studio, and when I was hiring studios. And it had to be done in 2 days, and that was it. But in the back of your head, that like there was a pressure and a necessity to actually do it. So you drive the session through to make it, to hit your targets and get it done. And I think that's why back then I think I was probably more prolific in my writing
because of that pressure.
Yeah.
So yeah, production wise, that's a good tip. Don't spend a week getting the hi-hat absolutely perfect, because at the end of the day, who's going to care?
Well, yeah.
Don't get bogged down with these details too much.
If you need to spend a week on 2 elements, then those elements clearly aren't working.
Yeah,
that's the way I do it.
I'm exactly the same. If you have to spend, weeks and weeks getting a sound right, then it's probably not right in the first place.
That's it. The simple sort of philosophy is good tracks write themselves, literally.
Yeah.
You get up and running, and all the elements you put in, and it's clear what the track needs. You can hear it. You're not sitting there scratching your head. It's just it's a very enjoyable and easy process, and it should be. You shouldn't have to slave over music. It's creative. You're supposed to enjoy the process.
What are the most important elements, though, would you say? I mean, if you're going to spend time getting something right, what are the key things to focus on?
For me, just drums and bass. That's for dance music. That's the basics. That if you've got a good beat, good bass, and it's working, saying that though is that some people just tend to ruin tracks that are perfectly good. You mix them in, and you're like, this is cool, and then some element will come in, and you just feel, what are they thinking?
Yeah.
How can you? But yeah, for me anyway.
Yeah, so this is something that I think a lot of producers might struggle with. If they approach the music from the kick drum and the main drums and then the bass upwards, what comes next? What's the how do you create that riff and hook? Especially if you have no knowledge of music theory, or getting those elements, the catchy elements, could be quite tough.
Well, yeah, that's it's an interesting point. Is a little while ago, I worked with some guys called Aquasky, and the way that they write is that they write the riff first. So the whole track's based around putting a riff together, and then they sort of work downwards rather than building upwards. And they release a lot of music, and they're obviously that this is just the way I work. You know, don't get me wrong. Is what's right for one person isn't right for another one.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that quite an easy way of working. The only problem is that the way I've got used to working is building up a groove, and then the riff really kind of just plays off the drums and the bass rather than the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there's any wrong way or right way.
Yeah. So you're doing a podcast, Lowering the Tone?
Yes, I have a podcast, Lowering the Tone, which I thought was quite apt because I do interviews with people.
Yeah.
And they also always kind of end up... The idea is just similar to what we're doing here, is just you sit down and you just talk about music or whatever it is. And the people that I've had over so far, you know, everyone's been very honest, and, you know, it's nice to hear producer DJs actually talk from their own mouth rather than a little soundbite on Twitter or Facebook or whatever it may be. And, you know, radio's changed now with the internet. Whereas many years ago you'd switch on to Radio 1 and it'd be certain people would be interviewing someone, whereas you don't hear so much of that. Not on the underground music. Obviously in the mainstream music you get to hear all your, you know, the big artists being interviewed on, you know, big radio stations, but it doesn't seem to be much of a voice piece for, you know, the smaller producers, the underground, more cult producers. Because I guess that, you know, not everyone's interested, but I found it's become reasonably popular, and I get a chance to play all the music I like because obviously it's my show, so it's not, I'm not really promoting anything apart from the music that I like, and it's just a vehicle for me to go, you know, play some music that I like but not known for.
And also, yeah, exactly. You're more known for the harder stuff, the club sets, but this is half of the podcast is deeper, isn't it?
Yeah, very
more deep house and
deep and twisted, and also is that there's no genre. I'm not based. I never really have been. I just play music that I like on this show. And what I found that I get very excited about buying music. I don't just get promos and that's it. I buy a lot of music. So it is. I used to just buy a lot of deeper music, and it would sit in a folder, and I'd just listen to it every now and then, and that was it. Whereas now it's got a little purpose, and I really enjoy doing the mixes, especially when it's something that I know that I'll probably never get a chance to play out. So yeah, it's a bit of breath of fresh air for me.
Any tips for someone getting started?
No. Yeah, just be very true to what you're trying to achieve out of the production. Just A and B the music that you like with the music you're making, and that way try and be accurate to what you're trying to achieve. Don't get caught up in too many production tips when you haven't got a strong idea. Get your idea going first, and then just try and make it sound good. I know it's a very simple philosophy, but it works.
So get a good idea first, and once you've got one strong idea, let the other elements form around it.
Yeah, you know, if you listen to a bunch of music that you like, that you're playing, and use that as your reference, sort of set your sights high. You know, don't just sit there and kind of start writing a track and have no aim or no goal. You know, you're sitting there writing a piece of music and try and make it sound like something that you want to play. That, you know, if you're a DJ, that is. You know, just don't be scared to be influenced by stuff. Obviously, you know, I wouldn't endorse copying people, but you know, it's like learning how to play the guitar. You know, the first thing you do when you learn how to play the guitar, you learn how to play your favourite songs. So, you know, for example, if you like, I don't know, Andy C, and you make drum and bass, you know, just
listen to his
tracks, you know, and just go, well, what is it about this track that I really like, and sort of dissect the idea behind it, and then use that as an influence for how you write music. It's not rocket science.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's all we've got time for, sadly.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Pleasure, as always. And make sure you check out his podcast, Lowering the Tone. See you next time.
Thank you.